this somewhere in your books or on computer, even when you're Googling, like Google Scholar. So motivation in particular to team environment and how you kind of approach the game itself. So if you have any, I'm going to make a highlight of this and upload it to YouTube. I'm going to post it in my Discord. So if you haven't joined my Discord, please do. And it will be there. And send it to your friends. Send it to everything. So this, I want to make it clear, as King just mentioned, he needs motivation for his exams. This doesn't explicitly apply to video games, although it would be tailored. My explanation would be tailored to. It doesn't necessarily relate. It doesn't always have to relate to Overwatch specifically. This can be applied to League of Legends teams. It can be applied to your study endeavors. So motivation. Why is it important? Motivation. Okay, the big thing is why it's important. I want to get some chat thoughts on this. Why do you think motivation is important? And I'll make it easier. Instead of making it a broad explanation, because it should be obvious to say, like, motivation is kind of obvious to why is it? It's so important. It's like how you get through every day. It's like a daily thing. But let's try and be specific to Overwatch and the application. Ah, yes, why you're already one step ahead. I'm glad you studied, I assume, business. When I hear of the 4-drive theory, I assume you studied business. But we're going to be talking about, we talk about those, specifically the first one you talked about, but we're going to talk about how we can apply it into a team environment. Alright, to keep you going, without motivation, there's no drive to improve, no stagnation. Yes, you guys are on the right track, specifically to Overwatch, right? What? Okay, I'm going to put it out there. Why is Overwatch, OCE specifically, why is it so demotivating? And why are we seeing so many players feel like they're burning out? They're not enjoying the game enough. They don't see any progress. Why? Meta is boring. Queues. Because the sim game matchmaking kind of sucks for your teammates. So a lot of this already is perspective. Right? A lot of it is already perspective. Meta is boring. Is that objective or subjective? I think the meta's fine. I mean, as a coach, I think it's fine. Overwatch is a beautiful game. There's so many creativity things that you can kind of do. Like as a team coach, I can kind of apply strategies, even in this boring meta, that can kind of be really smart. Right? The application of the meta can be interesting. In a team environment, it can be interesting. I agree that ranked is obviously can be boring if you're running the meta comp because there's not a proper execution of it. But when I truly believe that a lot of it comes down to perspective. Queues are about 1 hour. That's objective. Like I can't deny that. I agree. The rank queues are way too long for this game. However, that's not going to impact you. That should not impact how you progress and how you stay motivated. So meta is boring. I think it's BS. Honestly, I think Goats was seen as boring early on, and then once you understand the actual like ins and outs of a comp, it can actually be pretty fun. It was actually really fun. Goats was really fun. Same as Dive. Small player base. Again, I think it can be demotivating, and also actually small player base. Who said that? CJ. CJ said that. I'll talk about that in a second because it actually directly applies to one of the theories I'll be talking about. There's a lack of coaching. Yes, I agree, mitochondria, which is why I'm doing this. I'm helping you guys out. That's why I'm doing this, because I am very aware. Dives out competitors. Guess was good if you're playing an organized environment. And super honestly, I think that this meta is also fun if it's in a coordinated environment. Everyone's gonna have different takes of the meta. One person, like I read on Reddit, I know it's Reddit, but there's a couple of people who said that this meta is absolutely okay. They like playing the characters. People have said Goats is boring, but I thought Goats was enjoyable. A lot of people I've talked to in a pro environment was enjoyable. I agree that Doom is kind of RNG and he's broken, and Orisa he's shooting shield, and that can be very very depressing at times. I agree, but in general, nothing's more enjoyable than setting up another person, and that comes down to perspective, which I'll talk about in a second. So motivation. There's personal motivation, and I guess a team environment and how you kind of motivate each other. So when you're playing Orisa, right, there's nothing more boring than a shooting shield, which is why you got to change your perspective and like, what can I do to best improve our team, especially if you're in a team, a scrim, rather than always looking at yourself. Which I know that might sound a bit odd, but Orisa is one of those characters where you need to be setting up other people. So without further ado, let's start. Let's start about talking about this then. Motivation is important, specifically to Overwatch OCE, I guess also in contenders in general. And one people haven't really talked about this is OCE is extremely volatile, and what I mean by that is you have open div teams getting recycled players every month. You have base one as an example. Looking at you, Cuffer. I mean, what? I'm kidding. Oh, that was a low blow. Base one, right? They were like I guess titled the best open div team in the season, and they died within a month because not only because they had really poor culture, and that team, by the way, but when that team disbanded, all the players suddenly lost motivation because they thought that was the team, and now they all want to quit the game because they're like, we're not going to find a team similar to that. There's nothing happening around. Nothing's more demotivating, and please disagree with me if you want, but nothing is demotivating when you're on a really good team and something BS happens, and you end up being on a second-ranked team. Example is in contenders, right? After every season, name a team that's kind of built a new roster and had success the next season. Atletico, Legacy. Legacy is kind of they've stick together, but they have still. Atletico, Mavs, right? And you can see a direct correlation between teams that are staying. I guess Mindfreak, but that's a different. We kind of had the same core, right? Our players didn't get poached. So, Order, the old blank roster, to an extent, Sydney Drop Bears, although this season not as quiet, and Mindfreak, right? You keep majority of the players, and the players stay motivated and continue to improve because they are already in a system and they believe in the team. Nothing's more demotivating. You get to Ground Zero would be a perfect example of this, right? You get to the top two, you make it so far, you're close to making MEO, and then half the team either leaves, retires, goes to another team, they get poached. And what's the coaching staff going to be like? What's the remaining people in Ground Zero going to feel like next season? They're going to be like, we made it so close and now I have to start again. That is so demotivating, especially in OCE where contracts are 3 months long. And this is why I'm a big advocate for yearly contracts, right? Because even if you have a mediocre season or a successful season, it can kind of protect. And this is again, this comes back to the next topic. Contracts and security and stuff. So that's why being highly motivated as an individual and creating as a coach, implementing these kind of techniques in the environment of a team is super important in OCE. You protect not only the well-being of your players but also yourself as managers and staff. So I think we talked about why a little bit too in detail. But I think that was a 5-minute, 7-minute explanation on its own. So someone brought it up, and all you well-educated viewers, as I'm sure all of you are, there are two theories that we're going to be talking about today. And these are nothing special, right? These are most common thing if you read in books and business books and psychology books. But I want to talk about how we can apply it, and that's Maslow's theory. I'll just type out the whole, and you have the goal setting theory. Now, there are the four drives, and there are other theories out there, but these are the specific ones to kind of introduce this motivational topic. These are the two ones that I've noticed that have had success before and more relevant to even Overwatch. Goal setting theory was heavily applied to Mindfreak. We had really good success with it. I'll talk about that in a second. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs was kind of implemented the foundation at the beginning when we started this season, when we built the roster. What is Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I'm glad you asked. For those who haven't Googled it already. Yes, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is it? Oh, I'm glad you guys asked. So, as the title suggests, it's a pyramid. It's a, I forgot his name. I forgot his first name, Maslow. Google his first name. All I know is his second name. But yeah, Maslow. This is especially in business. He kind of identified these 5 levels of a pyramid, such as the hierarchy, to determine how far a person or a player. I'm adding the extension of a player on because we're again relating it to video games because it's a team environment. So this is a team thing. How can they progress further? How can they stay motivated? So the first, actually, I'm going to, just so the new viewers can come in, they don't just watch a pyramid get drawn out. Let me just title Maslow's theory. Motivation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 levels. 5 levels. First one is your basic needs. So food, water, shelter, basic things, right? This is, you don't have to worry about it if you're gamers, because usually you do have roofs over your head, and you do, if you can buy a good PC, if you're competing at a high level, I assume you have food. I guess whether or not you're eating healthy is a different story. You know, junk food, sure, but at least you have access to healthy water. So the first one, basic needs. Actually, I'm going to just screw writing on a pencil. I'm going to go further and just write it out. Basic needs. I cannot spell and save spelling. Second one. Can someone... Actually, no, I'm just going to... Actually, someone in chat... I know someone is in here and understands the Maslow's theory. I will try to be interactive as possible, but someone kind of predict what... even if you don't know what it is, try and predict it. CJ says safety needs. Does anyone agree with CJ? Social needs? Alright, you're one step ahead, Tyler, but the answer is safety needs. The next one is social. Yes, third is safety, and then the fourth is belongingness. Yep. So safety needs comes down to your job security, right? The biggest thing in OCE is contracts are in 3-month durations. Nothing is more demotivating when you're out of contract and you don't know where you're going to be next year. So even in the midst of Overwatch League, so many free agents. There's a lot of cloud. Yeah, 3 months. Why are people asking for 3 months? Like, they might be trying to protect themselves, but they're not actually protecting themselves long term, right? Mindfreak does a really good job of this. I'm not going to go into details of what our contracts are like, but we are contracted long term. And that after the season, we're like, from a coaching standpoint, I feel so happy that like we're not going to lose players because they're out of contract, right? They're all still going to be playing with us next season, unless they get picked up in buyouts and stuff like that. But everyone at Mindfreak feels safe because we have these long-term relationships with the org. So nothing's more scary than when everyone goes free agent after 3 months, after a season, and it's like, damn. Seems like teams are trying to build around the coaches rather than the players. Then, what do you mean? Because coaches are also on short term. Like coaches are also recycled. Like Blank, they try and form a long relationship with like Sword and like Sexy and all that. But like Grand Zero, they get a new coach every season. Sinjopez, I mean, they kept those. They've kept Noxious for a while. If coaches how long is that Mindfreak thing? That's just a Mindfreak thing. Like I think Mindfreak has like players on contract for a longer time. I'm not going to go into like specific like duration of it, but it's a very long time. I mean, it's probably MF weird. I'm on a very similar contract to what the players on. So coaches are also recycled. So same thing. If you're a player, if you're a team, and you're losing your coaches quite often, then you just don't have structure. You can't get yourself going. So safety needs, job security, big thing. I'm actually going to write security. Security here. And then food, water. So first two things we can already talk about. I mean, not necessarily the first one. First one's kind of self-explanatory, basic human thing, human rights. Safety needs. Now this is where we can kind of talk about Overwatch being contract-based, and I mean even game, right? Even games, and not just Overwatch, League of Legends. That's why there's a lot of teams and other titles have longevity. So there is a direct correlation between how long you guys are as a team contracted and to your success, such as Order, Old Blank, and there was a period where Sydney Drop Bears were really strong. Now, hopefully, Mindfreak. Third, as well as security-wise, you're not sure how long the game is really going to last in general. Yeah, especially now with Project A being released. That can be difficult. So I think BlizzCon's also a thing. But you got to look at Overwatch League and be like, right, is Overwatch like realistically Overwatch League realistically going to last? I think it is. I think there's a lot of it. I think the ecosystem's kind of developed already where it can last long, so you can kind of look at it that way. Security is really hard. Team 3, literally nothing. Yeah, it can be difficult for tier 3 teams. But that's, you can kind of, I mean, you can make the same argument though. Legacy kind of stayed together as a team. They were on X69 Gaming for a year. They went to Legacy, and they proved, right. They were that good just purely because of their synergy. I mean, they've got mechanically skilled players, but their synergy was one of the best in contenders, and they were from OpenTiv. So I think you need to find a good balance of players who have the same vision and also have the same similar drive. Now, I agree that is very hard to do to find in T3, but it can be done if you have a coaching team. That's another big thing. Like players in the volatile scene will rarely go to a team that has no coaches, no matter who's on it. Coaches make a big part of it. Alright. I'm gonna... Oh. Yeah, that can fit on. I'll just do 5 over here. So, chat. What's number 3 and number 4? Let's get this out. Thanks, CKM, for the follow, and you've come in at a decent time. I'm sure if you got it, I think you do a lot of uni work. You went to start. I think that's why you retired for a bit. So you probably have heard of the Maslow's theory. But now we're going to be talking about like why it's important to Overwatch specifically, actually in video games in general. We're trying to apply it. I have changed it. I've actually removed it, but for some reason, it's not active. So CJ Super says 30 is belonging. CJ says socials 3, and they've stayed informed. Yes, you guys are correct. Oops. And I'm gonna finish the yeah yeah slash belonging needs, whatever. Actually though, hang on. I will put belongingness in there. I'll just do that. Okay, so belongingness refers to your direct relationships with your players and coaches, right? So if you join a team and you already have bad blood with one of your players, you're not going to stay there for a while, right? It's going to be really difficult to kind of keep yourself up, especially when someone's trying to shut you down all the time. Then it's hard to progress to the next stage, which is the fourth one. I'll get into this in a second. But so you need to be. It's essentially like the family, a family environment, which is why like at Mindfreak we have such a big emphasis on even players, even people not in the team, right? We have this close connection with our streamers. So it's a very community-based team, run team. So that's why our team, like everyone in our not just in Overwatch, but in Mindfreak in general, under the Mindfreak name, feels a sense of belongingness, and that goes a long way. They feel motivated to just, whether that turns on the stream or whether that's playing, rocking up to scrims, they have a sense of belongingness, right? It's like a second family for us. And I'm not going to go too, otherwise I'm going to get quite cringe and get quite deep. But you know, that I hope that kind of shares light into what belongingness is. Esteem kind of talks about how you progress and how you feel, how you kind of assess your achievements. So individual goals is really good, and this kind of branches off to the next one, the goal setting theory, which we're going to talk about in a second. So kind of how can you individually and as a team implement esteem needs, or how to kind of keep your self-esteem in check. Because if you're just playing with no goal per scrim, it's really hard to track progress. And then, 3 weeks earlier, be like, did I actually make any progress? That's where a lot of people can fall off. Now, the fifth one is there's a lot of the fifth one can be very difficult to kind of talk about, and that's self. I'll just fucking. Sorry, I swore. This is a PG stream. Self actualization. Now, this can be difficult. There's a lot of different kind of descriptions online, in books, and different schools and universities kind of teach this differently. However, self-actualization, and specifically to Overwatch, I mean, in general even, talks about what's the next step. Realizing your potential is essentially what it is. So let's talk about contenders. OC contenders. And I know a couple people, and this is why I strongly still believe in the path to pro. While it is not the best conditions, the path to pro allows all the contenders players to kind of believe in their potential to get to the next step, such as whether that might be an academy team or that might be an Overwatch League team. So self-actualization gets to the next step. What's the next step from Open Div? Trials, right? What's the next step from Trials? Contenders. And what's the next step for Contenders Australia? That might be getting signed to an academy team, if you're lucky, to an Overwatch League team. So that's what keeps the path to pro, I think, in my opinion, a good thing. I reckon Blizzard, I mean, execution might not be there. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to get controversial. But for the motivation of the players, I can see it working. As long as people kind of know their potential. If you're a top 2 contenders player and you realize your potential and you can see yourself playing overseas, that's perfect. You're fulfilling the last stage of this motivational theory. And we saw a couple of people, coaches, So Gunbar went overseas. Colourhex went overseas. Who else? Technically Custer. Not at the same time. Punk, Trill. So they realized their potential once, even though they competed at the top for the best. Even though the top, the best DPS player, even for a while, they could be the best DPS for two seasons. But they kept realizing their potential and they kept going for it because there was that extra step they can go. It's like if you're more business minded, right? Let's say you're a manager and your CEO says to you, there's no more room for you to be promoted to. You're going to feel very demotivated then. You're just going to feel, oh, my work's for nothing. But once there's like that open spot available, then you're like, I can reach that. It's like a light at the end of the tunnel. That's what self-actualization kind of talks about. Alright, cool, Paso, yeah. Yeah, it worked for I'm37, yeah. Paso, mate, just go back to your photoshopping of bus, dude, while listening to anime sounds. So that's Mozart's theory. Has a coach. How can you implement it? You kind of need to, from the get-go when you create a roster, you kind of need to make sure that all your players are on the same level and same vision. It's really important that you kind of ground, you kind of talk about your goals as a team. Can't be too far. You know, it's so easy for a team to be like, right, we're going to make contenders next season, an open div team. But, all right, we're going to make contenders. Easy clap. But how are you going to get there? You got to be realistic. As an open div team, they might be getting 70% win rate on Lijiang Tao, for example. Or it might be getting trials or making open div playoffs. Right? That's why it can be a grind. It might not work for one season, but you can definitely get there. And that's why it's really important to get that vision. Because if you get people looking too far ahead, they're not going to work on week by week work, which is really important. Because then that's how people are going to realize their achievements. If they focus week by week, not too far ahead, they're going to focus on one thing at a time. And that brings me on to the next topic. And the last topic, otherwise we're going to be here all day. Which is the goal setting theory. Now, there's team and individual ones, right? But every single goal that you create needs to be smart. Yeah. Sorry, let me make that clear. It was Locke and Latham, right? I believe it's and I'll just say Locke. Saves. So, what is SMART? Smart. So, these are acronyms, obviously, but I'll just write it out. Specific, measurable. So these are what you need to kind of keep in mind when you're developing goals. Now, there's many, I guess, different interpretations of this. You know, so CJ, you talked about how accurate being attainable. That's actually no, you are right. That's probably more applicable to what we're talking about. Accurate is more about talking about science, I suppose. Like being accurate is more of a science term. Although this is where it can get cloudy, the A, and timeliness. Yeah, I mean again. Attainable is also something that I've looked at and studied, but when I was doing science, this is where I really struggled. Was in science we learnt it to be accurate for some reason. I mean, I can understand why, but yeah. So when you're creating a goal, all right. Actually, question for chat, and I want a yes or no answer. Is this a good goal? if I was to write it out. So while you guys are voting, is this a good quote? Not a quote, a goal. So let me kind of color code this a little bit while you guys are talking about it. So I'm just going to put S M A R. This is very scuffed. So I'm going to color code this, and we're going to kind of highlight them, I suppose, as we go through. Is this goal specific? Not really. Is it measurable? I mean, it is kind of measurable, because if you make contenders, you are there. Is it attainable? Who knows? If you're a prodigy, then it might be attainable. Is it relevant? Is it relevant to your improvement? No. Because the key word is my goal. That means it's an individual goal, right? If the goal was kind of phrased our goal, then it might be relevant, although we're talking about specifically individual like improvement right here. Is it timely? No. Right? You don't put a time on it. Actually, next season, yeah, it kind of is, but it's really missing the specifics and like the nitty-gritty of a goal. Thanks, Soggy, for the follow. Yeah, it's very, very wishy-washy in what it actually targets. You can argue it covers the T, as you said, but in my opinion, I think it's also measurable at the same time. So it's very wishy-washy, right? It doesn't cover all 5 aspects of a SMART goal, which is what the goal setting theory kind of talks about. So if we change the goal, though, to, let's change the goal to my goal. Now, me writing my goal sounds like back in prep where it says, I want to do this. This is how I did it. Kind of thing, the full stops and everything. So bear with me. It's a really bad example, but let's say you have a notepad, right? You ignore my goals. My goal is to improve my sticky. How can I say this? Pulse bomb stick rate by 10%. Now, again, these are really wacky goals, but bear with me. I don't really have examples that I've already although I should have, pre-made. But my goal is to improve my pulse bomb stick rate by 10%. So, is this a SMART goal? Is this a SMART goal? So, to provide context, right, to make it, I guess, easier for this, that changes it, by the way, the context. So, let's talk about it for a sec. Is it specific? It is much more specific than the first one. Is it measurable? Yeah, it sure is. Let's get the yellow up. It is 100% measurable, right? You can actually track, you can go through VODs, you can track it, it's measurable, you can actually do it. Attainable, is it realistic? It could be. But it's definitely relevant. If you're a Tracer player, if you're a Tracer main, and this is the issue, it is definitely relevant. It's definitely relevant. Is it timely? No, it's not. So this covers 2 out of the 5. Much better than the first one. So see how... I mean, reaching contenders might be a great aim, but how are you going to do that, right? There's a lot of individual work you need to do to get it to a contenders level. So, let's say this Tracer player is wanting to reach contenders next season. This is how you can kind of create your goals. So, Tracer, my goal is to improve my pulse velocity rate by 10%. Great start. Not the best, but it's decent. Where's the writing tool? Let's go to... How about now? Now I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop trying to interact with the chat a little bit because we actually pressed for time a little bit. But so, I mean, as before, it is relevant. This time though, it is timely. Whoops. You do have set yourself a time goal. So after 4 blocks, then you can measure it. So it is measurable, and it is timely. Oh, not timely. Relevant. Attainable. Look, I think if you're kind of providing this level of contextualization, then I think it can be attainable. I mean, I mean, it depends. I think it's very dependent on the context. Like, if you have 30 FPS and you realistically have missed every... Oh, actually, no. If you've got a 30 FPS and you don't grind at all, if you don't play the game at all, then it's not attainable. But let's assume that these goals are a Tracer player who plays the game every day and in scrims, then it most definitely is attainable. Specific. I think this is specific. I can get more depth, but... Actually, no, it's not specific. Aha. I wouldn't say it's not attainable. There's no real... Wait, what do you... that's very confusing. I'm saying that, like, I think it's attainable because if you're a Tracer player who plays every single day and you're playing Tracer in scrims, I think it is. Although, you know how I talked about relevance? Yeah, Tracer play in a current meta, probably not relevant then. If you're a Reaper, then all of a sudden this becomes relevant. But if you're a Zarya player, playing in this current meta, then you're like, why am I setting myself Zarya goals? It's not relevant at all. But yeah, specifically, like, let's assume this is a dive meta. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no reason why. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Now, one last iteration of this goal to make it not a decent goal. I mean, this is a very scarfed example, but look, it will have to do. So what if we do the same, but we extend something? Yeah, I don't know Kovacs much, so I can't really. I don't even know if there's one exists right now. But these kind of target all 5, right? It's very specific, right? You kind of talk about how you're actually going to achieve it. So you're going to be using the Kovacs scenario outside of scrims. 30 minutes per day. I mean, that's very, very specific, right? it's relevant if you're a tracer player playing in a dive meta. It's measurable, 100%. It's relevant. Like I said, timely. You can 4 blocks. It's definitely attainable if you have Kovacs downloaded and you're a tracer player who plays the game every day. There's no reason why you can't. And specific. But if we look at how far, this is a much better goal compared to this one. I mean, it could be an aim, but there are steps to get there. So this is why it's important to, as a coach, have these individual channels in your Discord that are only private to you and your players. This is what we do at Mindfreak, right? And after every single review that you do with your player, you can kind of just put down 3 or 4 kind of goals that they can work on in the scrim. It doesn't have to be as extensive as this. This is kind of just like a hardcore example. But as long as the players can understand what topic you talked about in review and the thing, that you guys should be on the right track. And all of a sudden, after the scrim block, and remember the 4th step, was it the 4th step? Yeah, the 4th step about esteem, the esteem needs, right? How can a player track their achievements? This is a great example. If after the scrim they'd be like, right, they can talk to the coach, be like, right, the coach would be like, you did this really well, but mate, you got to work on this area because you forgot about that a little bit. And all of a sudden, you have a perspective of your own progress. That is motivating as hell. I can guarantee that.